gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
Let's talk about that.
Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. And this week, we're talking about B2B marketing lessons from Parks and Rec with the help of our special guest, Director of Content and Brand at Intellimize. Jen Lacey. Jen, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am doing wonderful as well. We found out that we're practically neighbors, which is always fun and exciting. And we're going to be neighbors today in our content journey. Why the heck did you pick Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so I picked Parks and Rec because I think it's just a super smart show and all the characters are so unique and weird and funny. And that's kind of like everything I strive to be, both in my personal life and as a marketer at work.
Can I get apps and zerts?
Zerts are what I call desserts. Trays are entrees. I call sandwiches Sammy's, Sandoozles, or Adam Sandler's. Air conditioners are Cool Blasters with a Z. I don't know where that came from. I call cakes big old cookies. I call noodles long-ass rice. Fried chicken is fry chicky chick. Chicken parm is chicky parm parm. Chicken cacciatore, chicky catch. I call eggs pre-birds or future birds. Root beer is super water. Tortillas are bean blankies. And I call forks food rakes.
I think you're weird and funny and smart.
Thanks.
As well.
I took that as a compliment. It's better to be weird.
Oh, of course. It absolutely is. I would say it's one of my defining characteristics. And zooming out, tell us about Intellimize and your role there as Director of Content Marketing and Brand.
Yeah, so Intellimize, we do website optimization and personalization. I work on the marketing team, so we're a pretty small team. Everybody wears a lot of different hats. I'm responsible for overall content and strategy, our brand. So we just did a rebrand back when I started a little over 18 months ago. I manage our website. I also do our customer marketing and case studies, a little bit of product marketing, sales enablement. So do a little bit of everything. We share a lot of those roles across our team, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Obviously, content, you kind of always end up touching a little bit of everything, and then brand, you touch a little bit of everything. So it seems like, if there's a hole, then you can plug in.
Yeah, we also, because we're a small team, I get a lot more say and we have a lot more creative freedom in what we're able to do and pitch to our leadership team. So I definitely get a lot of bandwidth to be funky and fun, which I enjoy.
Meredith, what the heck is Parks and Rec?
So take my hand. We're going back to 2008.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
So if you think about where you were in 2008, like I was in college, we're 3 years into The Office being just this gem on TV. And NBC is looking at The Office being like, this show is doing awesome. How can we start thinking about what the next popular thing could be? And so they turned to Greg Daniels, who's the one who adapted The Office for a US audience, because originally, as we know, it was a UK show. And so they asked Greg Daniels to create a new show. And so Greg Daniels is like, who do I want to work with on this show? And he turns to one of his coworkers from The Office, Mike Schur, who wanted to work with him. And at the time, NBC wanted it to actually be a spinoff of The Office based on Karen Filippelli, who was played by Rashida Jones. So she was at
funny.
like the other location. Yeah, I was like, I had no idea. And they originally wanted to call it Public Service, which just feels like such like a flat soda name. And so like The Office, they wanted to make this sort of like mockumentary style with characters sort of like breaking the fourth wall, interacting with the camera. And so I thought like for B2B marketing, like my takeaway here would be like, oh, create a spinoff of already popular content, or like look at what's already popular and sort of play that into your B2B marketing. And so Greg and Mike are doing brainstorming, like what could this new show be? And they thought that if The Office was about a fictionalized private sector, what if they made a show about a fictionalized public sector? And at the time, Mike was binging The West Wing. And so they pitched Parks and Rec as a fictionalized West Wing.
Ron! Hello, Andy.
It's quiet in here. Where is everyone?
The government is shut down. It's in every newspaper.
How long is it going to last?
Now, if we're lucky, this building will be empty for months.
Wow, that is really bad timing. I just got this super sweet-ass rad crotch rocket. I've always wanted one of these, but due to, never having a job, I couldn't afford it until now. Got a really good deal on my lease, paying like 12% interest.
And so when they were doing like research about it, they actually went around to local government offices when they were developing the show to see like what's it actually like working there. I feel like, yeah, Parks and Rec is like an office that like isn't really taking that seriously too. And so it's an interesting idea. But someone at the office in Burbank actually inspired the character of Ron Swanson, played by Nick Offerman. So he's based off a real person. And Greg and Mike thought it would be funny to have this head of the office, Ron Swanson, opposed to government and content to just like slow processes down. So that was like a way that they brought in comedy to their show. So Ron is naturally a libertarian and he acts as the foil to Leslie Knope's overly ambitious personality.
Ron, the people at the public forum said they might want to fire me.
So what? I tried to fire you.
Okay, Ron, come on, be serious.
I was not joking. Here is your personnel file. See for yourself.
Brilliant work, commendation, above and beyond.
Keep reading.
Request for termination? You tried to fire me once?
No. I tried to fire you 4 times.
What? Four fire times?
And they said there are 2 types of government employee. Ones that just kind of like fall into sort of public service, and others that are actually like stoked about it, believe in it. And Leslie Knope is the one character that is that person.
When I first tell people that I work in the government, they say, oh, the government stinks. The lines are too long at the DMV. But now things have changed. People need our help. And it feels good to be needed.
And so she and Ron are like foils to one another. So another lesson I thought about this is like take inspiration from real life. So, go and do your research, talk to your customers. So when they're looking at who would play Leslie Knope, Mike had worked with Amy Poehler on SNL and wanted her as the lead. But NBC wanted to, this is just a weird detail, NBC wanted to launch the show after the Super Bowl, and Amy was due to give birth then. So they basically decided the show depended on Amy. And so they gave up the post Super Bowl spot. And Mike said, we felt Amy gave us the best chance for the show to work. Looking back, it was the right move. And so I thought that was really interesting, where it's like, you kind of have to decide who the right people are to be in your content. And then like, you might have to make like tough decisions and compromise based on that, but try to decide like, what does the success of your content depend on? And the other thing I thought was funny was like when they were doing the casting, one day the casting director called Mike and said, I just met this girl and she's the weirdest person I've ever met. Can you guys guess who they're talking about?
Yeah.
It's going to be April, right?
It's April, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Aubrey Plaza, yeah.
Yeah.
So they met Aubrey shortly after for about an hour. And Mike said she made him more comfortable than he'd ever been. And that's
more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's when Mike decided to write April into the script. So she wasn't even supposed to be part of it.
My mom's Puerto Rican. That's why I'm so lively and colorful.
It was just like totally happenstance. So one technique I thought was interesting that they used to build more comedy into the scenes, which was once they'd done the scene by the script, then they'd do a fun run, what they called a fun run. And so in they would basically like run through, like the scene is done. They're done filming. And then they do a fun run, and the actors could basically do whatever they wanted. And so a lot of delightful things happened. Like the snake juice episode had Ron like drunkenly dancing with April's pillbox hat on. And that's also when Andy said, they said one of the best improvised lines ever. So Leslie was sick in the episode, and Andy says,
Leslie, I typed your symptoms into the thing up here, and it says you could have network connectivity problems.
And so my lesson from that was that do your content the way it's sort of quote unquote supposed to be done, and then let yourself improvise. Like, have fun with it, get creative, like let yourself go a little bit, and you might come up with like unhinged things, but you might also come up with some like amazing things as well. And so anyway, all that said, the show aired from 2009 to 2015. And obviously it's about the government employees in the fictional small town of Pawnee, Indiana.
Pawnee, the Paris of America. Pawnee, the Akron of Southwest Indiana. Pawnee, welcome, German soldiers. After the Nazis took France, our mayor kind of panicked. Pawnee, the factory fire capital of America. Pawnee, birthplace of Julia Roberts. That was a lie. She sued, and so we had to change it. Pawnee, home of the world-famous Julia Roberts lawsuit. Pawnee, welcome, Taliban soldiers. And finally, our current slogan, Pawnee, first in friendship, fourth in obesity.
In 2012, it was named Time's top TV series of the year, and it inspired celebrations like Treat Yourself Day and Galentine's Day, which I love. I'm wondering, Jen, like, what has stood out to you about the show? Like, why do you love it so much?
Yeah, so one of my favorite dynamics is the dynamic between Ron and April. Like, they just both seem like they don't really ever want to be there, but they work so well together.
I want to be your assistant.
Really? You hate it here?
So do you. I'll make sure you don't have to go to any meetings. If anyone comes to see you, I'll scare them away.
Wait, April, if you had to choose between these two ties...
You're hired.
And as I was thinking about this, recording this with you guys, I was reminded of one of my favorite scenes is when April's like Ron's assistant. I don't know if she starts out as that, but she's his assistant, and he gets really upset with her, calls her into his office because basically he's got like a ton of meetings that day.
Hey, good morning.
Why are there 6 people outside who say they're waiting to meet with me?
So you know how you love me because you haven't had a single meeting with anyone since I became your assistant? That's because every time someone calls and requests a meeting with you, I always schedule it for March 31st.
Why?
Because I didn't think March 31st existed. 30 days has September, April, March, and November.
June and November. Today is March 31st.
I know.
So then how many meetings do I have today?
93.
I just like their whole dynamic is so funny and weird, and like they couldn't seem more opposite, but at the same time they totally gel together, and you can see the underlying fondness that they have for each other. So that's not necessarily a lesson, but just like the dynamics that they create with those characters are so witty and so fun and so weird. And I think the other thing is like there's a character or kind of like a flavor for everybody in that show, and someone that I feel like you tend to kind of identify with. And, similar in marketing, like not everything is going to fit every person, but if you can find like one vein that kind of suits that person or their style or their learning style, then, you can kind of appease all the options. So
I think it's so many like ridiculously great characters, obviously, in the show. And I think that, the reason why they work so well, Ron and April and so many of the different characters is like just the classic, put 2 people that are opposites together. And I think it's a great B2B marketing takeaway because we have so many opposites in the business world that whether it's, your CIO and your CMO or your CFO and the salesperson or like whoever it is, that there's these huge, huge differences between people just based off of like personalities by kind of like going into roles. And you can play with that stuff so much and you can turn it up to an 11. And I think the big lesson there is sort of like turning up those things to 11 makes it so funny because you see parts of, the Ron Swansons or Aprils or, whatever. They might not be the most awkward person ever, but there is an awkward person that you work with. And that's why like these shows are so funny. It's like you just get to know these characters and you feel like they are your, coworkers.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the big things for me is like that I feel like Leslie is just so great at, for as much as she's, over the top, just like loves her job so much. And you kind of feel like nobody else in the department really feels that way. She is all about like building relationships, which I feel is the foundational thing that has helped me excel and helped me thrive in my roles, is like being able to work cross-functionally with different stakeholders, getting feedback from people, my CS team internally, working with customers, doing outreach to talk to customers about how they're using our product. Like being that kind of conduit and building those relationships is so critical to success anywhere. And especially in the B2B world, like it's big, but it's also really small. And so I, have worked with people 3, 5, 7 years ago that I'll come across again. They're either in another role or I'm in another role. They're working with a tool that I either used to work with or am looking into. So there's so much to be said for building those relationships and maintaining them throughout your career. And I think that can take you a long way.
What I hear when I'm being yelled at is people caring loudly at me.
One of my favorite scenes in the show is when the police officer comes up to Ron and he says, "It's okay, I have a permit." And he hands him, and the way he's holding the permit in his hand, he's like holding it with like one finger on the permit and then 3 fingers like this, and he hands it to the guy, and the officer just looks at him and goes, "This just says I can do what I want." It's a blank piece of paper that says, "I can do what I want, Ron." And man, it's just so freaking funny. And there's a million moments like that.
He plays by his own rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so funny because we all know people like that at work that just sort of, do whatever they want. And it's like,
yeah,
it's just so good. But I do think that like the way that Ron and April and Leslie and Anne and all these people and Andy, of course, they are such a good core cast and have all these ridiculous sort of sensibilities. But then they also brought in so many other guests onto the show.
Hello, Mrs. Obama.
Hey, Grant, how you doing?
Doing good. This is Leslie Knope. She's considering a job with us running the new Midwest Bureau in Chicago.
Well, you know how I feel about Chicago.
Yeah, you are from Chicago, so you like it.
That's right. And we need passionate people like you in our national parks. They get hundreds of millions of visitors each year. Are you nodding because you agree with me?
Yes, I do agree with you. I agree with you on all things throughout history until the end of time forever.
There's just like the list of guests that they had, like, actors that have come in a little bit. Oh, we didn't even talk about Aziz. Like, I mean, obviously they hit the, lotto with every single character that's on this because they've all gone on to be like way more famous than they even were at the time. But just bringing in so many famous people for cameos, like Paul Rudd or, Will Arnett or, whoever else.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for coming in.
Good to see you guys. It's been a while. How's Leslie? Is she still, what was that thing we ran for again?
City councilor.
Oh, all right. If you say so. I tell you, it's so hard to remember boring stuff like that.
And I think that that's another strength of the show. It just keeps it so fresh and fun and all of that. And I think they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, I think one of my other favorite dynamics when we talk about is the Ron and his wives, Tammy 1 and Tammy 2. And Tammy 2 is played by Megan, I don't know how to pronounce last name, Mullally or whatever, who he is married to in real life.
Hello, Ron. Hello, Ron's friend.
Tammy, what could possibly bring you to a children's performance? Preparing a ritual sacrifice of a newborn?
No, just trolling for some daddy. Oh, sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Trolling for some daddy.
Diane, why don't you take the girls for some ice cream while I dispose of the sewer-dwelling gutter witch?
And the dynamic that they have on screen, like she's supposed to just be kind of like over the top, a little bit out there. Like he's almost afraid of her. The dynamic that they have, and just thinking about how fun it probably was for them to film all of that and gives us a peek, like brings a little bit more realness to the show too. Like I'm sure some of that is is kind of how they interact outside of work. But just watching that, it's so clever and so well done and brings like a sense of realness to the show.
So they say that good artists borrow, great artists steal. And obviously this is 100%, ripoff of The Office and in form and format and all of that, right? And but one of the guys made both, right? So this new style, I think, became this mockumentary style, which had been around, but not really popularized sort of like this. And it's interesting that they pitch it as a fictionalized West Wing, because it is not anything like that, right?
I had actually never heard that, but I also learned more from Meredith about how the show came about in the last 20 minutes than I knew the whole time before. So I hadn't researched it.
It teaches us all. Well, no, and I think that it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting comp because I think it's really important to bring comps together. I think comps, this is one of my big marketing takeaways here, is that when you bring comps to your leadership, they understand it way easier. It's why you use comps. So you say, hey, we're going to make The Office plus The West Wing. That's the pitch for this, right? Same style as The Office, same zany characters, but it's going to be in a sort of a government setting. Now, again, I would say that this show is absolutely nothing like the West Wing in any way. And other than it's sort of set in a government sort of, place. And it's funny because it could have been set anywhere, right? I think it makes it a little bit funnier that it is like a government institution, right? Because there's, I think, a little bit more malaise from the characters.
Ron, you have to help me. Chris is making me do some stupid management training leadership course. Can you get me out of it?
Yes. Normally, if given a choice between doing something and nothing, I'd choose to do nothing. But I will do something if it helps someone else do nothing. I'd work all night if it meant nothing got done.
But you couldn't get more malaise than in The Office by working for a paper company, right? They made it the most boring place possible. So it's interesting to me is they didn't make it somewhere more dynamic at all. They made it somewhere equally boring. If they had made this show working for Red Bull, you know what I mean? Then it would be totally different. You take a show like Mythic Quest, which I don't know if have either of you watched Mythic Quest yet? Oh my gosh, it's freaking hilarious. I think it's on Apple. But anyways, it's set in a video game company, and it's very much, it's just a bunch of crazy characters, and it's really fun and funny. And they have a bunch of people from, I think, Community, and I think some people from Parks and Rec are on the cast as well. But anywho, in a video game company, it's a little bit more dynamic because they're making video games. Whereas in Swanee, it's just not.
It's supposed to be boring.
Yeah, it's supposed to be boring. And so I think it's an important, and The West Wing, again, is supposed to be the opposite of boring. It's supposed to really make you look at the office of the president and all the people around them and all the decisions that are made on a day-to-day basis, and to dig into what actually happens when decisions are made and how they would be made. And hey, if someone, pardoning turkeys and doing this sort of stuff, how does that all work? That's the point of The West Wing. This is not that at all. So I think it's important to use comps when you're pitching leadership on your marketing initiatives, and to find stuff that's really good. Because if you told me The Office plus The West Wing, I'd be like, that sounds pretty cool. Those are two of the great shows. Let's do that, right?
Do you need to go to the dentist, Ron?
I don't like dentists. Just a second.
Hey!
Oh, no.
No.
Oh my God! I'm sorry, everybody. What were we talking about? Recycling? Dentist pulled the tooth out yesterday. But it's always a good idea to demonstrate to your coworkers that you are capable of withstanding a tremendous amount of pain. Plus, it's always fun to see Tom faint.
And even though it didn't end up being anything like The West Wing at all, other than that it's set in a government setting, it still got the freaking thing made. That's the most important part.
Well, I think they have a lot of fun too with just poking fun at government tropes and how the bureaucracy and how slow it is to do anything, and how that's kind of why a lot of the characters don't really take it seriously, because they're well, it's going to take us, years to get anything approved. I remember they were building either a playground or something else, and there's just a lot of fun being poked at how long it would take to get literally anything approved for the project.
It was crazy. I didn't get a single permit. Nobody stamped anything. All I did was order a backhoe, and it came with the guy who runs it. I'm so excited we're doing this. And we're doing it without permission. We're giving ourselves permission.
And Leslie's always, just like there, chipper hopeful with her hard hat on and her massive binder full of, paperwork and, getting through all the red tape. But I think that one of the fun things too is just how much fun they poke at the idea that government is slow and takes forever to like do anything.
Yeah, it's more, and that's sort of what I'm getting at. It's more about the inside jokes of us all understanding how slow the government is and like poking fun of it.
I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money. My dream is to have the park system privatized and run entirely for profit by corporations.
Whereas like the West Wing is more about like, illuminating us about what happens behind the scenes in the West Wing between these super dynamic, smart, really highly intelligent sort of people. But yeah, no, it's just interesting that it sort of like got pitched that way, originally. And it just sort of isn't really that show. Another thing that I found interesting was the Super Bowl thing, which is, it's a crazy little tidbit that they were going to launch on the Super Bowl and they didn't end up doing it. And that would be a really hard thing to do as a marketer. Be like, 300 million people are going to watch this promo, or we could stick with, the lead of our show. And like Amy Poehler was known because she was by then she had already been on SNL and she was pretty famous. But there's, you have to make up that marketing budget somewhere else, right? You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't get that spot, you got to make it up in other spots. And clearly they were able to do that. So, my takeaway there is just like, you have to have conviction for whatever it is you're doing.
For sure.
If you don't really believe, then your boss sure as heck ain't gonna believe.
Yeah. Hindsight's always 2020. It's always easy to look back and be like, oh, we should have done this. We should have done this. But I think it's probably really rewarding for them to look back and be like, wow, we've definitely made the right call there.
Yeah. And I think, in an alternate universe, if somebody else is Leslie Knope, like, probably is like, it's still a good show and still, all these sort of things. And, but we are under time crunches and we do have, stuff that we have to do. And if you can't get the Super Bowl ad, then what are you going to do, to get that same amount of impact? And that's a tough sort of call that they had to make. And it's something that we sort of deal with all the time here. And for the Super Bowl spot, probably it is actually worth it, right? It's like if you're to make the decision, it's a pretty important ad spot, right? Because you don't know if this thing's going to work and all this sort of stuff. So that actually is one of those decisions where it's like, I think a lot of decisions we make in marketing is like, do we launch on this day or this day? And I don't actually think it really ever matters. Like, I think that there's like 2% matters, or what, maybe like as long as you don't do something like really silly, like launch it on, whatever, Thanksgiving Friday or something like that, you're probably fine with your launch. But launching during the Super Bowl is just about as important as it gets.
Yeah, I think too, it kind of another lesson there is like, you have to kind of play to your strengths. And certainly NBC had the resources to make that call and make that decision when they were, like confident enough that it was going to be worth it. But if you're like a way smaller team and don't have as many resources, you kind of have to play to what is available to you and what makes sense to you. So I think it's also important to remember that it's super situational and you have to kind of take your own set of circumstances into account and plan the best you can for kind of the cards that you're dealing with.
Another takeaway for me, in the vein of good artists borrow, great artists steal, is that they copied the sort of blueprint for The Office in terms of the format of the show, having zany characters, putting it in an office setting, but it still feels really different. Like, I don't think, it feels like a knockoff. And I think what people in B2B kind of end up doing is we actually just do the knockoffs. Is like, we just do hot ones, but we do it for B2B, which is like, there's a difference between a knockoff and creating something that sort of like is inspired by something else, right? You see a lot of like people do The Office, but for, whatever. And that's fine too, not to say that there's anything wrong with that. But this isn't that, right? This is there is a bit of a reimagining that happened here. And I think that it's important to sort of figure out what your unique thing that you want to do is and find the unique selling point for your audience and like explore that, because I don't think it's always good to just sort of like knock off the stuff that's out there.
Yeah, I think I talk about this all the time with my team. Like in B2B, there's only so many ways you can say the same thing, and we're all kind of saying the same flavor of something. Like we're all selling to other businesses, whether you're selling to tech people or you're selling into other marketers. Like it's the way that you can get yourself to stand out and lean on that creativity, especially if you don't have a giant budget to work with or a big team or a ton of bandwidth. It's like how you can kind of embrace your creativity and think outside the box, even if you're saying basically the same thing. Like, how do you stand out? How do you set yourself apart? Because the space is just crowded too.
What else? Other marketing takeaways?
I mean, it's all kind of in the same vein, but like creative problem solving. So we lean into, we're small. We don't have a ton of, we don't have a massive budget. We have some budget to work with, but it's all about how to be creative in problem solving for different things. I think in the show, Leslie does this constantly. Like every episode, there's some new problem or something that they've got to solve. And she's always kind of like thinking outside the box of like how to motivate her maybe not so motivated team to do things, or how to get creative in approaching different challenges. And I think that leaning into that like creativity and collaborating with people and using your team, your different individual team members to their strengths is kind of how you circumvent a lot of those challenges.
And then when that's done, we're going to put a park on the land.
Okay.
Well, I've worked at the Parks Department for 6 years, and I've handled a lot of things that I'm proud of. Recently, I led a citywide drive to disinfect the sandbox sand after we had those problems with the cats. But this pit, the chance to build a whole new park from scratch. This could be my Hoover Dam.
Yeah, I love that. Tell us about one of the ways that you've done that.
So our content strategy is, or my philosophy is always first off to be helpful and then engaging, creative, and effective, right? So I think that when we're trying to reach kind of a more niche audience, we're looking at not just things that would help them do their job better, but also like things that would help them advance their own careers. So we've looked at our blog as the easiest way for us to get content out quickly. So we've kind of also pivoted to not only how to or helpful things on how to use either our product or competitors' product, like how to do website personalization in general, but we've also kind of leaned into the angle of how to help our target audience maybe be more effective in their jobs. Or the example I'll give is like we've started doing a series on our blog about like interview tips. So for growth marketing managers or account-based marketing managers, like because of the kind of volatility of the tech industry right now, people are hopping around a lot. So like how can we empower those people in our community to be better at interviewing when they have to? Here are some of the top questions that we're asking that growth marketing managers are being asked when they're interviewing. Here are some of the top metrics you should think of and keep in mind when you're interviewing, because those are probably the things you're going to get asked, how your programs are performing. So we've kind of leaned into that helpful side of things too, and trust that we're building trust with our community, and we're engaging with them, and they're going to return to our blog and our site and continue to keep our traffic up because they're looking for that content that's not only helping them use our product, but advance their careers too.
Final marketing lesson from Parks and Rec.
My biggest takeaway is, and the reason that I'm so attracted to the show is just like embracing your weirdness and your own unique self.
Donatella, T-Mobile. 3 words for you. Treat yourself. Treat yourself 2011. Once a year, Donna and I spend a day treating ourselves. What do we treat ourselves to?
Clothes.
Treat yourself.
Fragrances.
Treat yourself.
Massages.
Treat yourself.
Mimosas.
Treat yourself.
Fine leather goods.
Treat yourself.
It's the best day of the year.
The best day of the year.
Don't try and be anyone else. Like you said, don't try and be a knockoff. Think of where you stand out and where you can contribute, and embrace that. Embrace what makes you unique and weave it into, your marketing tactics and strategy. I think everyone associates B2B with like straight-laced, very serious LinkedIn ad campaigns and, email nurtures that are dry and boring because that's who we're talking to. But at the end of the day, like, I'm marketing to other marketers. They're still people. Like, they're still watching shows after work like I am. They're still, doing things on the weekends with their friends. So they're not robots, and they are like, that human element is what makes us relatable. And so coming up with weird, unique, wacky ways to connect with them and get their attention and then pitch them on whatever it is you're trying to sell them on or get them to do is I think kind of the key and is how Leslie gets, frankly, anything done in her office, right? Like catering to people's unique personalities and being weird and being herself. And her team loves her for it at the end of the day.
April, I got a present for you.
I don't like lotion. I like my hands to be cracked and calloused like a railway worker.
I know. I filled the bottles with fake blood, vinegar, and mud.
Really? Thanks.
I think embracing weirdness is absolutely a great B2B takeaway and something we need to do more often. I think it's, it's very appropriate that Aubrey Plaza, when she meets Mike Schur, Mike thinks that she's the weirdest person that he's ever met, and that he made her feel more uncomfortable than anyone in his life. Like, that's so freaking funny. And she is such a famous actor because of it. Like, she is super sought after. She is in like all sorts of stuff. She's amazing in all of her roles. And she's very emblematic of like this embracing your weirdness. It makes her unique. It makes her interesting. If you were to go ask like 20 people, like, who are the weirdest actors in Hollywood? You would always say her as one of them. And I don't know why I'd give you a list that high. I'd say 3 weird actors in Hollywood. Tom Hardy, probably another one. Like, you look at, and these are the people that stand out. They are unique. They're the ones who do these crazy roles. They're the ones who have this sort of distinct style. I think it's an interesting note on casting that, like, if you had an idea in mind for this character of April,
Where'd you get that dress?
I was buried in it.
and you just like closed your eyes and you thought about it and you're like, who would I want? You're like, maybe you think of someone like, I don't even know who you would pick, but you probably would have never landed on Aubrey Plaza because she's like one of one, right? And it's like, what we always try to do with our brand is we try to do the like, close your eyes and imagine the brand. And if your brand is boring, then it's really hard to imagine it. If your brand is not boring, then it's easy to imagine it. Like if Aubrey Plaza if I wanted a role that I was like, oh, I want to write a character, I know exactly what I would want for that person. Whereas if I was to write a character for someone else, then you might be like, oh, you're kind of looking for someone who's just like everyone else. Someone who is very forgettable, right? If you had someone in a role who you just wanted to come in and out of a scene and not notice them, right? But so often our brands, we want them to be the one that everyone notices, but we don't want to take any risk at all in anything that we do. We don't want to take risk with our logo, with the name, with our marketing, with our ads, with our content. Like, we never want to take a risk. And yet the things that always stand out, the things that go viral, the things that people talk about are always like the Aubrey Plazas of the world and the Parks and Rec of the world, which are super weird. And like, it's just different, right? It's just unique. And I think that people just, they would rather be like everyone else, and it's very undifferentiated.
Yeah. When you go on LinkedIn and you scroll through posts, it's like kind of, a lot of times it can be just a sea of the same thing over and over again. And like you said, I think people just err on the side of wanting to play it safe, but that doesn't always move the needle when you're looking for a way to stand out. So I totally agree.
I would say it never moves the needle.
Yeah.
And people get, I think, obsessed with like brand colors or like, things like that. We're like, well, there's only so many colors, right? It's like, I saw someone who was like, everybody chooses the same type of blue or whatever. And it's like, there's only so many freaking colors in the color wheel, right? It's like, you can choose pink or you can choose yellow or you can choose green or blue or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the thing that's making their brand not stand out. Like, yeah, you could choose fluorescent orange or fluorescent pink or whatever it is, and that would probably stand out a little bit more, but a ton of companies have done that too. You can have a mascot that makes you stand out. Sure, that helps too. But to me, when you go back to the content piece, is like, are you saying stuff that is actually interesting?
Right.
And are you delivering it in a way that stands out, that is unique? Do you have a unique enough host that can bring those insights out? Or are you just going to mail it in and just have boring conversations with long lead-ins and all this other stuff?
Right. Yeah. Just to check the box versus doing something that's actually helpful and moves the needle for not just you, but your audience too. Because our big philosophy is like, the more that we help them, the more they come back to us and look to us for that content and that advice and that thought leadership. So
yeah, what's working for your audience right now?
Yeah, so I feel like if I haven't iterated that enough already, like the less is more approach is super popular for us, especially across blog content. So anything how to help them do their job better, how to use our product more efficiently, and then also with the landscape, the ecosystem and the economy right now, like how to maximize your efforts with a smaller team, less budget, how to prep for changes that are coming. So third-party cookies are going away. We've had a lot of topics on that on our blog recently because people are interested and want to make sure that they're preparing for that. So anything that's super topical with changes in the tech landscape or, career changes for people that use our product, things like that all seem to be really popular for people right now and are driving a lot of traffic to our site.
I love the how-to. I hear that pretty often, that people are saying how-tos is the way to go, which is like so obvious, right? Where you're like,
yeah,
just create how-tos. I had one CMO who told me when we wrote our book, where he's like, we're seeing like really short ebooks work really well, really, how-to type stuff. So I figure, why not just write a long ebook that's not a how-to, but
yeah, and breaking up the content in like smaller digestible pieces too. Everybody's different. I don't have time to necessarily sit and read a 50-page, paper on a certain topic, but I do have time to go look at a 5-minute blog article or, a super short 6 to 8 page ebook that's easily skimmable or has a lot of like graphics and things listing out different ideas or different, approaches to things. So I think that the more digestible, shorter stuff is definitely working well for us as well.
All right. What about your favorite campaigns? Any cool content or brand campaigns that you've worked on recently?
Yeah. So one that we're super proud of. So like I said, we do website personalization. So it's all about customizing experience for a visitor on a website, whether they're known or anonymous. And my team got together and we were brainstorming, how can we talk about personalization, but also actually showcase our product and how it works. So we came up with, again, borrowing the idea of the popular game Mad Libs. So I used to play it in like elementary school, middle school. It's like little booklets. You get together, you list out different nouns, verbs, adjectives, and then those flow into sort of a story. So we took that concept and created initially just a landing page. And the idea was people land on this page, it populates with hi, and there's a blank for their name, and their actual name was filled in. And then, the message was something like having a hard time it was about ABM. So having a hard time executing ABM at, and then blank line, their company name. And then the rest of it was kind of auto-populated, but it was really cool because it was a landing page with a form on it. So we captured some additional information from them, but it was a way for us to collect information on people who wanted help with their ABM program, but also showcase our technology that helps them do those things. So we worked with a freelance designer because I don't have a full-time designer on our team to kind of make a cool graphic and theme that complemented the Mad Libs. Wasn't a total ripoff, but like it's pretty close to it, but using our own brand colors. And we turned it into a whole campaign. So we created an actual Mad Libs book that we had printed and we had available at events, and we used it for direct mail. We had swag that we produced for a couple of different events. We had it on all of our like booth designs for all of our events this past year. We had a complimentary ebook that we created to go with it. It was called Fill in the Blanks of Your ABM Program. So that was my favorite just because our entire team put so much work and effort into making it work. And again, we're like less than 10 people. So it was a big effort, but everybody had a part in playing into the creativity of it, making it come to life. And we were able to leverage it across multiple quarters. So it was an idea, and there's definitely some work that went into getting the initial like assets created. But that thing like had a hefty lifespan. We turned it into an infographic. We had blogs that went along with it. We had digital ads that went to it, and they were all this sort of fun Mad Libs theme. So it was a way to like reach our target audience with something that actually mattered to them while also still being super clever and not dry and boring.
So fun. I love this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about it. So you figure it's still working, right? It's like, not that I'm the litmus test for everyone, but I mean, how many people in your ICP, like have never engaged with it still, right? It's like it's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's so cool and it's so beautifully done. I should say for our listeners, you can go to Intellimize.com and find it /ebook/marketing-mad leads.
One of my favorite compliments too is we turn to the actual book. There's a couple different like topics. So each Mad Lib is a different story. So there's one that's like your 2024 marketing budget, and they're obviously sort of funny and topical. There's one about your work from home schedule, which is also a joke because there's jokes in there about like taking a nap in the middle of the day. There's another one, if ChatGPT built your ABM program. So we took the actual physical book and turned it into a digital version that is behind a form for LinkedIn ads. And one of my favorite things is when people comment positive comments on an ad that you do, because then you're paying for that praise to be seen by more people. Less so when people comment maybe negative things about. People had a real issue with the work from home one, which we thought was very obvious, that it was a total joke about like napping in the middle of the day, rolling into some of your meetings, taking a break to go walk your dog. But we got a lot of not so positive comments on that one, that anybody who had that work from home schedule was, a little too privileged. But yeah, the positive comments and people commenting on, oh my gosh, this is so clever, they're attached to those ads. So then other people see that. And I just love that, because it's people that don't work for me and I don't know that are praising, what we put into it. So that's always really rewarding.
We had the same thing with one of our ads. We did an ad that said it was like a person in a hospital with two nurses.
I've seen that one recently. I actually sent it to my friends.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
because it's like very dramatic, right? It's like somebody like I almost died or something.
Yeah. I almost died from making our company podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I can't believe that's funny that you said it. Oh yeah, because of course you're getting targeted because you've emailed, so you've been to the website. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But that, again, an example of like, that stood out to me. That's funny. It made me chuckle, like regardless of what, the message you're actually trying to get across. Like, I saw your brand name, I saw something funny and sent it to two people I work with. So
yeah, well, hey, that's hilarious. But yeah, we've got some people that have been like, this is not funny. Death happens, every day. I'm like, I fully understand that death is the Grim Reaper is around every corner with their sickle, ready to take us all. However, nobody actually almost died from making a company podcast. So I think we're pretty safe here. But anyway, so yeah, we got some negative comments, but then we also got a lot of positive ones. So
usually the positive outweigh the negative, but it's always funny to see how those shake out.
But also, if you don't have any negative ones, then you're probably not bold enough, right? I mean, it's like if nobody's saying, there's something wrong with it, perhaps.
Yeah, what's the phrase? No PR is bad PR. So
yeah,
there's a limit to that, but yeah,
I have a list of negative comments that we've gotten on different podcasts and stuff like that, of some of them that are just like so funny.
You keep a list.
Yeah. You got to keep the
just for the memories.
Yeah. The really good comments. We had one for Murder in HR where it was like they left a comment that was like basically something along the lines of like, how could you possibly like, like I'm in the car with my kids, how could you do this sort of thing? It's like, you're listening to a podcast called Murder in HR. What did you think was going to happen?
Right. Yeah, that might be on them.
Yeah, I mean, you might not want to listen with your kids. And there's like no swearing or anything. I'm like, this is not even bad.
Right.
And someone does get electrocuted, but it happens. Not that I'm condoning electrocution by any stretch. Okay. How do you think about ROI?
Yeah. So we think about ROI in a couple different ways, depending on the type of the piece of content. For the for the Mad Libs or Mad Leads, as we called it, campaign, a big marker was just percent increase in overall site traffic. As a team, we track like a number of content downloads. So that was super important to us. We also look at an increase in open opportunities. So with a campaign like that, there were a lot more pieces to it. We had, presence at events with booths, obviously the digital ads piece. So it's a little bit harder to track all of those pieces together collectively for a campaign. But open ops is another big one. MQL's marketing qualified leads is another big one for us. So, and then the more hard to measure ones that I get more satisfaction and would like to pay more attention to are, brand awareness and recognition. Like when I first started with Intellimize, we were at events, we had a whole different look and feel to our booths and just the way that we presented ourselves to the marketplace. And going to events, a year and a half later or my teammates going and hearing feedback that, they hadn't heard of Intellimize before, but they went and looked at our site and, oh my gosh, we do remember you from 2 years ago, but you look totally different. And wow, this campaign is so clever. And just knowing that that was directly because of what my team did. In no way, shape or form taking credit for it myself, but the fact that we were able to make that happen and make that shift and have people know who we are just based on an idea and a plan that we hatched in a conference room. And we just made it happen. That's super rewarding to me. So those are some of the markers that I like to look at too. They're just obviously a lot harder to measure. But yeah.
What's something that you're working on right now that you're excited about?
So I'm putting the finishing touches on a new ebook, and I'm not going to say what it is or what the theme is because we're still ironing out the details, but it's kind of another one of those things where we had an idea for, I'll say it's roughly about B2B personalization tactics and tying it to account-based marketing and how you can tailor programs for specific accounts that you're trying to reach. It has a really fun kind of kitschy theme to it. And I'm hoping to turn it into a broader campaign. So that's all very vague and ambiguous, but I'm hoping it's Mad Leads, Mad Libs 2.0 in the next month or so. So stay tuned.
We will be following along intently. For our listeners,
commenting on my ads.
Yeah, I'm going to be boosting them. I'm going to be sharing them. What are you talking? Just comment. I stop there. For our listeners, you can go to Intellimize.com and follow along. Wonderful having you on the show, Jen.
Thank you so much.
So great. What is one piece of advice that you would give to other heads of brand or heads of content that are trying to figure all this stuff out?
I feel like it's kind of the same thing I've been saying all along, but just be yourself and lean into what makes you unique. It's so cheesy, but there's no one else that is like you. Everybody has something unique that they can tap into and bring to the table. So lean into whatever that is and don't try to be like everybody else.
Fantastic. Jen, thanks again. We really appreciate it. Everybody go check out Mad Leads. We'll link it up in the show notes. And any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
No, stay tuned for my super ambiguous project that we'll probably be rolling out in the next month or so. And like and subscribe.
Love it. Thanks, Jen. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, little Sebastian. Miss you in the saddest fashion. Bye, little Sebastian. Your 5,000 candles in the wind.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.